So Justin should be over there. Perfect. So maybe I'm waiting for the jingle, but I think you can already enter the ring and get ready. Take your mic. To the audience, don't forget that we have votes, so you can already scan the QR code so that you are completely ready to vote. Maybe I will just be in the middle. Yeah. So I will just be in the middle. Maybe you can be a little bit more on the side like the others, and then it's perfect. Well, waiting for the jingle. Perfect.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
So you feel ready already. I can see you're ready.
We're ready.
Behind the room is ready, but
we've been ready since 2018.
Perfect. So the topic of today will be sharding versus Rollups. So we are going to make it entertaining, I hope. So on my left, we have Justin from the foundation, champion of the consensus of the new Beam chain, who can say us a lot of stuff about sharding, just joking. And on the other side, we have Illia. So I think from near, I think you are going to take the sharding point. I don't know why. I mean, just a thought. But maybe to start, we can say that, well, sharding has been quite a topic in the beginning of Ethereum 2. I mean, when the merge was announced, sharding was supposed to be a big thing. It was not really present in the roadmap, or at least present in a different form. So my first question to you, to both of you, would be to, well, maybe define what sharding is today, where we are, how did it evolve, and what are your opinion on that? And maybe, well, what are Rollups doing better? So, well, what is your opinion on all this? So let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah. So you're right. Actually, the Ethereum 2.0 was all about sharding, and this is what kind of got me into to research in 2017. And I think one of the big takeaways from the last more than half decade is that there's a better way to do sharding, and we kind of gave it a new name. There's a lot of similarities, but one of the big differences is around synchrony. So back in 2018, sharding was asynchronous sharding, and what we've realized is that it's possible to do it in this better way, which is synchronous. And what we've done concretely is what's called dank sharding as a first step, which is synchronous data availability sharding. And it turns out that you can also do synchronous execution sharding thanks to zero-knowledge proofs. And once you have these two combined, then you have something extremely powerful, which is, in some sense, one super unified chain. We have the L1 that we can scale dramatically and still have decentralization, again, thanks to Knox and data availability sampling. But we can also have things like native rollups kind of be extensions of the L1. And these, you can think of them as being programmable synchronous shards. So synchronous because they inherit the network effects, and programmable because they can be fully customizable. And they're extremely flexible, so you can have as many as you want. You're not limited to some number like 8. You can customize them and change the sequencer, change the tokenomics, change the governance, and they will basically inherit the same security as L1.
Okay, cool. So far, not a lot of fights. I would say a lot of things working in common. What's your point?
All right, so rollups suck.
Okay. That's the spirit. Maybe
who here likes to bridge between rollups? Who enjoys finding which rollup their smart contract is on, and if their network is connected properly on the MetaMask or whatever?
We have one person.
Okay, you're enjoying it. This is
Okay.
Yeah, you feel like you're doing work.
That's Marek from L2Beat, by the way.
Yeah, so the idea of sharding is that the scale should be an implementation detail, not the user-facing concern, right? It's, like you should be driving on a highway and you can, switch lanes and not think about kind of the road versus, right now Ethereum feels like a lot of, side roads and kind of exits and entrances and bridges that you can try to find where you're going. And so, I mean, yes, the final design, I think we agree, although I'll challenge you on 2 things. But the question is, what is it now, right? Like the current experience, right, and the past few years of building out the current ecosystem, right, is extremely suboptimal. It's really hard to use. The fact that like your address space is effectively fractionalized, it actually doesn't lead to scaling. It leads to Aaves deployed across every rollup, right? Instead of having more capacity for Aave, you have more Aaves and like more split liquidity. Now, on top of this, we have kind of like right now we don't have any phase 2 rollups, so we don't actually have any security. And the problem is this centralized rollups opened up effectively overton window to just say decentralization doesn't matter. Like I think actually this is the most major failure of Ethereum, is that it kind of allowed people to say, actually, hyperliquid, yeah, it's good enough, right? Multisig, good enough, right? Like that's actually the biggest failure I think we've seen over past kind of few years. And so now we don't really, now when you're building a product, even if you're trying to be decentralized, people like, why? Right? So that is, I think, the biggest failure. So we can then zoom in into like where the kind of beam chain is going, but yeah.
I mean, I agree with you that the status quo is imperfect. Having said that, you could think of it a little bit like democracy, right? It kind of sucks, but it's the best thing we have. And the good news is that, as you said, we kind of agree on the end game, and the end game is amazing, and the status quo is just a stepping stone towards that end game. You mentioned security, for example. It is true that the security is very suboptimal today. The main thing that is really bad, in my opinion, is the security councils. And why do we need security councils? Because there is the possibility of bugs, either in fraud-proof games or in snark circuits. And this is exactly what the native rollup idea is trying to fix, to remove the bugs, remove the security councils, and even more than that, stay in sync with the L1 EVM so that you don't necessarily need governance to maintain your L1 equivalent rollup.
Yeah, but so the question there is, why do you need native rollups? Why don't just go sharding? Deliver the same experience you want from native rollups.
Yeah.
And I'll challenge you on the everything is synchronized part.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen empirically is that people like rollups. So we
again, please hands who likes exiting and entering rollups.
Well,
yeah, we have one person who likes a single feeling of a single chain. You don't need to switch. All the applications in one place. Your wallet has all the assets. Who likes that more? All right. So empirically, we see more people liking that.
Okay. So
It doesn't exist yet, but okay.
Here's a quick question.
Well, it does, but yeah.
Like, has Coinbase, Kraken, Robinhood, Deutsche Bank, Sony, like, have they deployed on shards, or are they deploying rollups?
So again, as I pointed out, we, as Ethereum, opened up this overton window that it's fine to just run a singular server, right? You effectively saying, cool, now there's big companies, which again, it's good for onboarding more people, but at the end, they're just running a server. Like same as they've been running, like Coinbase is a server in the first place, Base is a server run by Coinbase, so it's, effectively, expectations are the same, right? We haven't really solved the decentralization and the self-sovereignty that the whole point of
you just need to be patient. Coinbase has been hardening their chain continuously, stage 0, stage 1, and I think L2B at some point will add a stage 3 or some sort of native stage once we truly do inherit the security of the L1. So yes, there is this kind of awkward adolescent puberty phase that we're in, but I think we're going out of it, and the future is extremely bright. And even though it's imperfect, it is the most pragmatic thing to be doing. In the previous debate, there was this kind of claim, and I think you were telling me that you wanted to make the same claim, that the whole strategy all along was to just let the L2s do all of the work and then kind of rug them by reusing the technology. Well,
You're trying to say yes?
The end. Well, what I'm trying to say is that we had no choice, right? So the L1 cannot use technology which is not mature, and the technology just took 5 to 10 years to mature. And now that the technology is mature, we can use it and we can have the L1 be superpowered. But one of the things that we underestimated in 2018 is the power of rollups from a BD standpoint, right? Like Ethereum doesn't have one BD entity, which is the Ethereum Foundation doing BD. It has dozens of BD entities that are going out there and getting deals like Robinhood onto Ethereum. And that is an extremely powerful concept. And what if we can have both the security of L1 with native rollups and the BD aspect that is a superpower we didn't even know existed?
All right, so then let's talk about native rollups, right? I mean, your claim effectively is that, hey, we didn't like the original sharding or some versions of sharding because they're effectively asynchronous composability between applications. And native rollups, you claim, are going to bring synchronous composability between different rollups.
That's base rollups. The native rollups is about security. It's about removing the security councils, removing the possibility for bugs in snark circuits or fraud-proof games.
All right, so this is just like everybody runs effectively the same code, like EVM, like ZK circuit is baked in.
Yeah, but the important thing is that you can program it. So it's programmable rollup where you can change the sequencer, change the tokenomics, the governance. You want to do public goods funding like Optimism, whatever you want to do, you can do it.
All right. So you can do all the same launching on a smart contract chain, right? You could just design your token economics and, sequencing is less, right? But sequencing is where, I thought we all pro censorship resistance. And so if you're outsourcing your sequencing, you're effectively giving up on censorship resistance.
You can't always just launch as a contract because you might crowd out other applications and there might be like gas fees dynamics and things like that.
Well, sharding solves that because you can always allocate contract in its own shard.
Well, not really. So, right, you have, I believe, an EVM contract on one of your shards, and that one contract is, big and vibrant, and it cannot itself be sub-sharded.
So EVM, no, but...
Right. We are the EVM. The EVM is the winning thing as a de facto standard of the industry.
Well, Solana would argue a different point here, but I'm not from Solana.
Look
so
at the data.
Not. But I think if we're talking about 100 million user applications, right, which we are trying to bring as an ecosystem, like EVM will, doesn't scale and not going to scale in the next few years toward that. And so you will
Did you watch my talk yesterday? So yesterday I gave a talk, GigaGas L1. We are going to scale aggressively. Specifically, the plan is 3x per year for the next 6 years. So that's 600x over 6 years.
From 14 transactions.
No, we're higher than 14 transactions. We're closer, I don't know, to 40 or something. But it's going up. And the hope is that it's going up faster than demand for block space.
All right. And so let's go back to what you said about synchronous.
Yeah, so that's with the base rollups. When you share a sequencer and when you have real-time settlement through real-time proving, for example, you unlock the ability for contracts across different shards or rollups to have flash loans, for example.
So, but when you do this, you're effectively limited by what that sequencer can process. So you are kind of bringing it all back to a single machine and its limits.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen empirically is that the block building is inherently a sophisticated thing, and there is a lot of centralization. The important thing that we're trying to do is make sure that even though the block builders are centralized, they can't do anything bad. So in particular, we don't want them to be able to censor, so we have things like Fossil. We don't want them to be able to cause liveness faults or safety faults or any bad thing. And so we're basically leveraging the good things of powerful builders, which is that they can find value across multiple desperate places of the ecosystem and create these synchronous transactions without the downsides of censorship and security.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I mean, you are making my MC job super easy, so thank you for that. I hope the audience is entertained. It was just a quick reminder that we might have something like 2-3 minutes left. So don't forget to scan the QR code and vote if you didn't already or if you arrived late. And I will let you keep fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the challenge that I have with this approach, right, is you're effectively saying, cool, we're going to have like, how many right now? 3 sophisticated block producers.
I mean, if Neo gains any significant traction, then it will have the same kind of centralizing forces.
Actually, we have 30 seconds. Sorry, I just missed the big timer right there. Please go on.
So what will happen? A natural evolution for a mature chain is to adopt what we call PBS, proposer builder separation. We have something called MEF boost, where basically as a proposer, you don't actually do the work of block building, you outsource it to sophisticated builders, and this is a perfectly permissionless and natural evolution. And
well, not if you're doing this at a few hundred milliseconds or even lower time frame. There's just no time for somebody else to try to propose and communicate blocks to you. And this is already happening even on Ethereum, where if you want to get inclusion into the next block, you have relationships with all the validators, and you're effectively pushing from dark pool transactions directly into this. So the reality is, yes, there's now a whole ecosystem of projects that are kind of working around all of the Ethereum, sophisticated Rube Goldberg machine, to make sure that they actually get the performance that they need to build applications. And
I'm absolutely sorry, but we are done. So I think it was a super interesting talk, mostly about, if we set the technical aspect aside, a very interesting fight about when is the right time to do things and what is the speed of R&D and how do we manage to compensate basically, censorship resistance and other things. So thanks you for this guy. I think you can continue, you can keep fighting after, because there are still a lot of things going. And yes, then take it in real life because you're here. Okay, and it looks like you won this stage, but I feel like it's not the last one, so congrats. Congrats to you both.
Thank you, Nicolas.
Thank you.
Thank you.